He'd been living by himself for 8 years, chatting only with his horses and the breeze. But one wild, stormy night, 10 Apache women showed up at his gate, asking for a place to stay. Tobias Redmond had to make the toughest call of his life. The guys chasing them were so close, they could probably smell the smoke from his chimney. Rain slammed against his wooden shutters like tiny rocks. Each drop reminded him why good folks stayed inside when the weather got crazy. Tobias was by his fireplace, fixing an old horse bridle when the knocking started. It wasn't a friendly neighbor knock. It was loud, frantic, like people who had no other place to go. He stopped, holding the leather tight. Nobody ever came to his ranch. Not since he made it clear he wanted nothing to do with anyone outside his fence. The knocking got louder, and he heard voices speaking a language he knew but hadn't heard. In years, Apache, his heart sank. The last time he heard that language, his wife and daughter were still alive. The last time strangers came knocking at night, he lost everyone he loved by morning. His hand reached for the rifle above the fireplace, like it was second nature from nights when he slept with one eye open. But something made him pause. Maybe it was the way the voices sounded, not angry or demanding, but almost begging. Maybe it was how the wind carried their words, scared and desperate. Or maybe he realized warriors don't usually knock. He walked to his big oak door, stepping carefully. Through the wood, he could hear the women's voices better now, talking fast and low. One voice stood out, speaking English with a heavy accent, like her words were carved out of rock. "Please, we know you're there. We just need a place to stay tonight." Tobias put his hand on the door, feeling it shake with their voices. 8 years alone taught him to trust his gut, and right now, his gut screamed danger, not from the women, but from whatever made them run to his door in a storm that could kill someone fast. He thought of his wife, Sarah, who used to tease him for not trusting strangers, saying kindness was what made them different from animals. But Sarah was gone, and kindness died with her when he trusted the wrong people. The voice came again, closer, like the woman was right against the door. "They're coming. If you don't help us, we'll die out here. And when they find our bodies at your gate, you'll die too." Tobias's hand hovered over the iron bar, locking his door. For 8 years, he never opened it for anyone. But something in her voice, a sureness that made his stomach twist, told him tonight was different. Out in the dark, men on horses were getting closer, and once they got here, his quiet life would be gone. The iron bar felt super heavy. When Tobias lifted it, 8 years of rust and fear seemed to fight him. But that woman's desperate voice cut through his walls like a knife through paper. The door creaked open, and what he saw would stick with him forever. 10 Apache women stood on his porch, their traditional clothes ripped and muddy, some with cuts bleeding dark stains into the wet fabric. The youngest, maybe 16, held a bundle that moved a little baby, barely breathing in the cold. The oldest had silver in her black hair and eyes that had seen too much death. But the woman who spoke through the door caught his eye most. She stood a bit apart, her chin up, even though she looked exhausted. Blood dripped from a cut above her eye, and her dress was torn, but she stared at him without fear. "I'm Ayana," she said, her English slow but clear. "These are my sisters, my daughters, my people. We've been running for 3 days." Tobias started to ask something, then stopped. Questions filled his head: where they came from, why they were alone, who was chasing them. But the baby's pale lips shut him up. Some things were more important than questions. "Come in," he said, stepping back. They moved fast, like shadows, slipping past him into the warm main room. Tobias forgot how small his house felt with others in it. For 8 years, it was his safe place, his hideout from a world that took everything. Now, it felt tiny with these women who smelled of rain, fear, and something else blood, not all theirs. Ayana was the last inside, and as she passed, she whispered, "The soldiers chasing us are close. Maybe an hour, maybe less. They won't stop till we're all dead." Tobias shut the door and locked it, knowing it probably wouldn't help now. His safe place was broken, not by force, but by his choice, and there'd be a price. There always was, Why? He asked Ayana. Why are they after you? Her dark eyes met his, full of pain he knew too well, the kind from losing everything. Because we ran instead of dying quietly. Because we chose to live when they wanted. You's dead. Because some of us fought back when they burned our village and killed our men. The baby made a weak sound, and Ayana's jaw tightened. And because one of their officers doesn't want us telling what he did to my youngest sister, Tobias felt a chill in his gut. He knew men like that, soldiers who forgot what honor was, who took what they wanted and killed anyone who might. Talk. How many are coming? He asked. 8, maybe 10, she said. Led by a captain named Morrison. He's been hunting Apache villages for months, saying we're dangerous. But his real enemy is anyone who might tell what kind of man he is. Tobias looked out a gap in the shutters at the stormy darkness. He couldn't see anything moving, but that didn't mean much. Trained killers knew how to hide, especially when they thought their targets were trapped. He turned to the women by his fireplace, some bandaging cuts, others comforting the youngest. They looked like survivors, not fighters. But he'd learned long ago that surviving sometimes meant becoming something you never meant to be. There's a cellar under the kitchen, he told Ayana. Stone walls, hidden door. It might fit you all, but it'll be tight. She shook her head. If they find us, you die with us. If they find an empty house with signs we were here, they might think you weren't involved. We won't make you an enemy of the army. Tobias almost laughed. Too late for that. I became their enemy the day I survived what they did to my family. Now it's about whether we run or make them pay for coming here. Something flashed in Ayana's eyes, surprise, maybe even hope. The storm outside was calming, and with it, the cover that hid them. In the distance, over the fading wind, he heard horses slogging through mud and men's voices, thinking they had their targets cornered. The sound of horses felt like a warning bell. Tobias moved fast, like a guy who always planned 3 steps ahead, grabbing his rifle and ammo from a cabinet. But when he turned back, he stopped short. Ayana wasn't the scared woman who'd begged at his door. She stood tall, in charge, holding a knife that shone brighter than the firelight. The other women had changed too. Some held weapons hidden under their torn dresses. Others moved like they'd fought before. You're not helpless, Tobias sighed. Getting it now. We never were, Ayana answered, her voice as sharp as her knife. But sometimes it's better to let men think what they want. Captain Morrison thinks he's chasing scared women who'll beg. He's about to learn he's wrong. The youngest woman with the baby moved to the back of the house without being told. 2 others following. They knew what they were doing, like they'd planned this. Tobias realized he wasn't hiding scared people. He was helping warriors who'd been playing a smart game. How many men have you killed? He asked Ayana straight up. Her eyes met his, no shame. Enough to know Morrison's soldiers aren't the first to underestimate Apache women. They won't be the last, but they'll be the most shocked. Outside, men's voices got clearer, calling to each other through the rain, planning their attack. Tobias counted at least 6. Voices, maybe more trained soldiers in a place they didn't know, chasing people they totally misjudged. The cellar, Tobias said again, but Ayana shook her head. We run, they chase us forever. We hide, they find us. But if we end this tonight, the hunt stops. Tobias felt something he hadn't felt in 8 years, a clear, cold focus. Before a fight, when surviving meant doing what had to be done, these women didn't come here by chance. They picked his ranch, this night, this storm, because they knew who he used to be. What do you need from me? He asked. Ayana's smile was sharp as her knife. Morrison expects scared women. He'll find us instead. But when his men see a white rancher fighting with Apache, they'll pause. That pause will cost them everything. A horse snorted close to the house, and boots splashed in the mud. Someone was circling, checking for ways out, planning their attack. Soon, they'd be inside, expecting scared victims. Tobias checked his rifle, making sure it was ready. Sarah's voice echoed in his head, saying kindness made them human. But kindness, he was learning, sometimes looked like fighting when it was all that stood between good and evil. There's something else, Ayana said softly. If we survive, you can't stay here. Morrison's death will bring questions, investigations. They'll come for answers. Tobias nodded. He knew the moment he opened the door. 8 years of quiet were over. But maybe that's how it was meant to be. Maybe some guys weren't meant to hide forever. Outside, a voice cut through the storm, loud and cocky, sure of winning. "I know. You're in there. Come out now, and we'll make this quick." Captain Morrison was here, about to learn some hunts end with the hunter becoming the prey. Tobias took a spot by the front window, while Ayana and 3 women spread out in the main room, hidden in the shadows of the fading fire. The rest slipped to the back, setting up defenses to confuse anyone, adding, "These weren't scared refugees. They were a war team planning this fight for days." "Rancher," Morrison's voice boomed again. "We're tracking dangerous fugitives. Open this door, or we'll say you're hiding enemies of the United States." Through the shutters, Tobias saw shapes moving in the dark, soldiers spreading out around his house, blocking escapes. Standard army moves, but they thought they were surrounding scared women and maybe one soft rancher. Ayana appeared beside him, so quiet he didn't hear her. "The one by the barn," she whispered. "That's Sergeant Blake. He was there when they killed my husband. The one by the well, that's Corporal Hayes. He held my sister down while Morrison." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Tobias felt a familiar anger rise, the kind that kept him going through 8 years. Alone. These weren't soldiers anymore, just predators in uniforms. And predators only understood one thing. "How do you want to do this?" he asked. "Morrison will come through the front door. He always does, wants to see his victims scared. His men will come from the back and sides, expecting women too scared to fight and a rancher too weak to resist." She handed him a shiny little mirror. "When you see the signal, take Morrison. We'll handle the rest." Tobias was about to ask what signal when a new voice broke through the storm, young, unsure, not like the harsh orders. "Captain, maybe we should just check the place and go. Could be just an old rancher hiding from the storm." Morrison's laugh was nasty. "Private Wilson, those tracks led right here. 10 women moving fast, bleeding in places. They're in there, with anyone dumb enough to help them. We do this my way." Tobias heard rifles getting ready, safeties clicking off. Whatever was happening, it was now. If you were Tobias, what would you do? Open the door and talk to men already set on killing everyone, or trust these Apache women who turned his safe place into a war zone? Tell me in the comments. I need to know your choice. Because what Tobias did next would decide if justice or murder won tonight. He made his choice. The front door burst open as Morrison kicked it in, rifle ready. But instead of scared women, he stared into Tobias's Winchester. For a second, Morrison looked confused. This wasn't the plan. That second was all Ayana needed. The mirror flashed in the firelight, signaling others in the house. The storm that hid the soldiers now covered what happened next, blades hitting their marks. Quiet grunts of men dying before they could yell. The sound of justice dealt with Apache steel. Morrison's eyes widened as he realized he'd walked into a trap, but it was too late. Tobias's finger tightened on the trigger, but before he could shoot, Ayana appeared behind Morrison like a ghost. "This is for my sister," she whispered, her knife sliding into his ribs perfectly. Morrison dropped his rifle, grabbing the wound. But Ayana wasn't done. She wanted him to see her face, to know who brought him down. "And this is for every woman you thought was too weak to fight." But as Morrison fell, a new sound came through the storm, more horses, more voices. Morrison hadn't come alone. Somewhere in the dark, more men were coming, and the real fight was just starting. The sound of more horses made Tobias's blood run cold. Through the broken door, he saw torch flames in the dark, at least a dozen riders, maybe more. Morrison was just the first wave, not the main group. The real army was arriving. Ayana pulled her knife from Morrison's chest, her face serious as she heard it too. Around the house, her women stepped out of the shadows like ghosts, confirming what Tobias knew. Morrison's squad was dead, but their win lasted only 30 seconds. How many? Ayana asked the woman beside her. 15 riders, maybe 20. They heard the shot. They know something's wrong. Tobias felt the weight of impossible choices again. Fight and die, or surrender and die slower. But looking at these women who turned his safe place into a battlefield, he saw another way, one that meant becoming the man he was before grief made him a hermit. The storm cellar, he said fast. Not to hide, to survive. What's next? Ayana shook her head. We can't run from this many. They'll chase us across 3 territories. We're not running, Tobias said, heading to a cabinet he hadn't touched in 8 years. Inside, wrapped in cloth, were things he hoped he'd never need again. Dynamite, fuses, tools from a man who once blew up mountains for railroads and later for war. My ranch is on a hill, he explained, prepping the dynamite. Water runs down both sides in storms. When floods come, it all goes somewhere. Ayana got it. The dam, Tobias nodded. I built it to stop flooding, but blow it now. In this storm, and the valley fills with 10 feet of water fast. Anyone down there drowns. Ayana finished. But we destroy your home, your land. Tobias looked at the cabin that had been his cage for 8 years, then at Morrison's. Body on the floor. Home wasn't the place anymore. It was a choice. And he chose to make sure these women lived. Some things matter more than a house. We have been running for 3 days. Ayana had told me, he said, remembering Sarah's words, about not clinging to stuff. Outside, voices got closer. Orders shouted. Positions taken. Someone found Morrison's body by now, saw the blood, and knew their easy targets weren't so easy. The youngest woman appeared with the baby, who'd slept through the fight but was now awake, eyes wide like she felt the danger. Lieutenant Morrison is dead, a voice yelled outside. Surrender now, or we burn you out. Ayana looked at Tobias, her face unreadable. If we do this, there's no going back. You'll be wanted forever. Tobias grabbed his rifle and the dynamite. Lady, I've been a dead man for 8 years. Tonight, I'm choosing to live. But as they headed for the back door, a new sound stopped them, a baby's cry. Not the one in their arms, but another out in the storm. One of the soldiers brought a kid with them. Sometimes the worst monsters hide behind the most innocent things, and the hardest choices test how far you'll go to save the people who matter. That baby's cry changed everything. Tobias froze halfway to the back door, the dynamite heavy in his hands. Through the broken front door, torchlight flickered over Morrison's body. Somewhere out there, an innocent kid was stuck in a fight that wasn't theirs. Ayana grabbed his arm, her grip strong. It could be a trick. Soldiers had done that before. But Tobias shook his head. He'd heard too many real cries to mistake the fear in that tiny voice. One of Morrison's men brought their own kid on what they thought was an easy killing job. Now that kid was about to pay for their dad's mistakes. We can't blow the dam, he said quietly. Not with a baby out there. Then we all die, another woman snapped. My daughter's life matters as much as that one. She was right, and Tobias knew it. But some lines, once crossed, changed you forever. He'd been on that edge for 8 years, and tonight he'd either step back or fall. There's another way, he said, setting down the dynamite. Harder, riskier, but it keeps everyone alive. Ayana's eyes narrowed. Tell me, we make them think we're trapped, overconfident. They'll send men to get us while the rest stay back with the horses. And whoever brought that baby, he paused. That leaves us outnumbered 3-1. In a fair fight, yes, Ayana said. But this won't be fair. Tobias went to another cabinet, pulling out stuff for a different kind of fight spikes to herd horses, tripwires to stop men, bear traps that never caught bears, but had caught men in the war. 8 years ago, I made this place a fortress, because I was scared of dying. Tonight, we use it to make sure others live. Outside, the soldiers were getting ready, someone taking charge, probably Morrison's second in command, giving orders. They had numbers and training, but they were. In the dark on land, Tobias knew like his own heartbeat. How do we split them? Ayana asked. We give them what they expect, a last stand. Barricade the front, make noise, act desperate. Half their men will come for us. The rest will stay back to guard their escape. Tobias smiled, not a nice smile, Then we show them the difference between hunting scared women and fighting people with nothing to lose. The plan was simple, brutal, and totally crazy. Ayana and 4 women would make a racket at the front to draw the soldiers. Meanwhile, Tobias and the others would sneak around through land only he knew, hitting the backup force and saving that baby. If this goes wrong, Ayana said as they split up, Morrison's death means nothing. They'll call us savage killers and use our bodies to justify more attacks. And if we do nothing, Tobias said, that baby dies for its dad's crimes, and you die for wanting to live. Sometimes the only choice is bad or worse. If you're liking the story, subscribe to the channel. The baby's cry came again, weaker, and Tobias felt time slipping away. Every second they waited was closer to a kid's death, another memory to haunt him. Move, he whispered. As Ayana's team got ready at the front, Tobias led the others into the storm through the back door. The rain was lighter, but the ground was slippery, and one mistake could give them away. As they crept toward the horses and quiet voices, Tobias realized he'd messed up. The baby wasn't with the backup force. It was closer to the house, between the 2 groups. Saving it meant walking right into the fight. The baby's cries came from a wagon between the house and the soldiers' camp. As Tobias got closer through the mud and dark, he saw a military supply cart. Next to it, a woman bent over something. Small, not a soldier's wife, but a camp follower, maybe a cook, who had to bring her kid on what was supposed to be an easy job. Tobias signaled his group to wait while he crept closer. Through the rain, he heard the woman whispering to calm the crying baby. She was stuck between 2 groups about to clash, with no way to keep her kid safe. From the house, Ayana's distraction started. Gunshots, yelling, furniture crashing. It was working. Tobias saw soldiers head toward the house, leaving the supply area with just 3 guards, still ready to shoot anything that moved. He made his call. Standing up, Tobias walked toward the wagon, rifle low but ready. A guard spotted him, raising his weapon, but Tobias called out calmly, "Easy, soldier. Lieutenant Morrison sent me to protect the civilians." The lie worked. For a moment. In the dark and chaos, with his dark coat, he looked like one of them from far away. By the time the guard realized his mistake, Tobias was close enough that yelling would draw trouble. "You're not Army," the soldier said, unsure. "No," Tobias agreed, hitting him with his rifle butt. The soldier dropped quietly. The woman with the baby looked up, terrified. She was young, maybe 19, with a tired, worn-out look. "Please," she whispered, "don't hurt my baby. She's done nothing." "Neither have you," Tobias said softly. "What's your name?" "Mary Hendricks. I cook for the men, do their washing." Captain Morrison said it was safe, just arresting women who stole horses. Tobias felt anger flare. Morrison lied to his own people, dragging a cook and her baby into his mess. Even dead, he was ruining lives. "Mary, I'm getting you out, but you have to listen to me. Got it?" She nodded, holding her baby tight. "There'll be shooting soon. When it starts, run to those trees and keep going till you can't hear the guns. Follow the creek downstream to a trading post 5 miles south. Tell them Tobias Redmond sent you." "What about you?" she asked. Before he could answer, the other guards saw him. One shouted, the other aimed, but the Apache women moved in like ghosts. The fight was quick. They expected scared refugees, not warriors planning revenge. Soon, the supply area was safe, and Mary ran into the night with her baby, vanishing into the storm. But their wind didn't last. From the house came a worse sound silence. Either Ayana's group won, or they were all dead. Then a new voice rose above the fading storm, cold and in charge. "This is Colonel Bradley, United States Army. You're surrounded by a full company. Surrender now, or we burn you out and hang survivors." Tobias's blood froze. Morrison wasn't the real boss. A bigger enemy was out there, watching, letting others die while he set up his attack. Colonel Bradley's voice was confident, like he held all the cards. Tobias saw torches circling his land, not a dozen riders, but a full army operation. Morrison was bait, and they'd fallen for it. But then Ayana's voice called from the house. "Tobias, we have Bradley's son." The silence after was heavy, like even the storm was waiting. Bradley's voice came again, shakier. "Release the boy, and we can talk terms." "No terms," Ayana shouted. "Only justice. Your men burned our village, killed our families, and worse. Now you answer for it." Tobias crept back to the Vazur house through a maze of soldiers and weapons. Closer, he saw Ayana's group had won, but two women lay dead in the mud, their sacrifice giving the others a chance. Inside, Ayana stood behind a young man in a lieutenant's uniform, her knife at his throat. He was barely more than a kid, with Bradley's eyes and jaw, but scared, not cold like his dad. "He came through the back," Ayana said quietly. "Thought he was sneaky, flanking us while his dad's men hit the front. He walked right into us." The young lieutenant tried to talk, but Ayana's knife drew a thin line of blood. "How old are you?" Tobias asked. 19, the boy whispered. "Same age as the cook's daughter who ran because your dad made her a target. Same age as some women your captain killed." Tobias studied him. "Did you know what Morrison was doing to those villages?" The boy's eyes flicked between them, realization hitting. "I thought we were stopping hostile Indians. Father said they were raiders, protecting settlers." "Your father lied," Ayana said softly. "We were peaceful, growing corn, raising kids, bothering no one. But peaceful Indians don't get army budgets, do they?" Outside, Bradley's voice came again, desperate. "I have 60 men around this house. Release my son, and I'll get you to the border safely." Tobias almost laughed, a promise from a man who built his career on lies and fake wars. But looking at the young lieutenant, he saw shock and horror as the boy realized what he'd been part of. "There's another way," Tobias told Ayana, "one that doesn't need his death. He's guilty by being there. Ignorance doesn't clear him." No, but his words could take down his father. The idea grew as he spoke, a colonel's son telling the truth about murder dressed as army work. It ruined Bradley and exposed the rot. "You want me to betray my father?" the lieutenant whispered. "I want you to tell the truth," Tobias said. "Can you handle what that means?" Before anyone could answer, new sounds hit horses. Galloping, voices shouting orders not from Bradley's men. Someone else was coming, someone big enough to scare a colonel. Through the broken door, Tobias saw new torches, carried by riders in different uniforms, maybe federal marshals or investigators. Someone had been watching Bradley, and tonight's mess got their attention. As it sank in, Tobias realized they might all make it. But survival had a cost. The truth had to come out. Justice had to happen, and big men had to fall. The young lieutenant looked at his captors, the blade at his throat, then his reflection in it. "What do you need me to say?" he whispered. If you're liking the story, subscribe to the channel. Dawn broke over Tobias's ranch 6 hours later, the sky gold and red, fitting for a night that ended one fight and started another. The investigators listened to Lieutenant Bradley's story with shock, writing down crimes that went beyond Morrison's unit, up to the territorial capital. Colonel Bradley was taken away in chains, his career ruined by his son's bravery to speak up. The surviving Apache women got federal protection and money for their losses, though no cash could bring back their families. Tobias stood in his wrecked home's doorway, watching Ayana get ready to leave with her people. The babies they saved, both the Apache child and Mary's daughter, made it through, but the cost in lives was heavy. "Where will you go?" he asked Ayana. "North, to relatives who escaped Bradley's attacks. We'll rebuild, but not here. Too much blood." She paused, looking at him. "What about you? Your home's gone. Your quiet life's over." "The man who hid for 8 years died tonight," Tobias nodded. She was right. The hermit was gone, replaced by a guy who remembered some things were worth fighting, dying, and living for. "I think I'll go west," he said. "Find a place that needs someone who can build and protect." Ayana smiled, her first real smile. That cook, Mary Hendricks, needs protection to get to her family in Denver. The trail's rough for a woman with a baby. Tobias got it. His first step as a new man wasn't running to a new life, but making sure others got to theirs. As the Apache women rode north toward hope, and Tobias got ready to ride west toward a fresh start. The sun rose over a ranch that saw too much death and just enough justice. Sometimes one story's end is another's start. And sometimes a guy who thought he was done found he was just beginning. Years later, travelers would talk about the night 10 Apache women and a lonely rancher stood against an army and won. But those who lived it knew the truth was simpler and harder. Sometimes the toughest choice isn't right or wrong, but staying safe or staying human. And when it matters most, being human is all that counts. Now, click the video on the screen for a story even better, with a twist you won't forget. Click the video